Hello, and welcome to another episode of For the Love of Sports. My name is Michael Rasile. This is the show where we get to talk about sports, we get to talk about business, and we get to talk about everything in between. Wherever you're listening, however you're listening, you know exactly what to do. Like and subscribe over on YouTube, 5-star review on Spotify, and on Apple Podcasts. Please 5-star review and say something really nice about me and my incredible guest today. I have Dustin Gouker. He's the current consultant to the CEO of Catena Media. He's former vice president of North American content over at Catena, and he is currently writing the Closing Line newsletter. Make sure to go check that out on Substack. Link in the description or show notes. Dustin, how you doing today, man?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to talk some.
Pleasure is all mine. I'm excited because I get to ask you all these questions. Dustin is also one of the hosts, I don't know what you guys like to call it, of the LSR, the Legal Sports Report podcast. So if you're ever interested in learning just a little bit more or a lot a bit more on the legal sports betting, iGaming, iCasino business here in the United States, and I mean they touch upon other topics as well, but definitely go check that out. But Dustin, the first question I have for everybody on the For the Love of Sports podcast is, why do you love sports so much?
I mean, I just grew up with it. You mentioned the Phillies hat when we were talking beforehand. I'm a Phillies fan before everything else. I grew up in Florida, but my family's from Pennsylvania, and then really young we moved back to Pennsylvania, and I went to a lot of bad Phillies games when I was a kid. We went to the old Veterans Stadium in Philadelphia in the 1980s. Early 90s when they were extremely bad at baseball. I actually I got to go to a 1993 World Series game against the Blue Jays, one of the games the Phillies lost. But I grew up loving baseball and just loving sports and watching a lot of sports with my family. My family all was just the thing that we always did. We got together. I was fortunate enough to be close to my grandparents and watch, go over to their house and watch sports on weekends and things like that. So it was just always a part of who I was, and it was awesome when I got to just turn that into basically a career being involved in sports. So
yeah, I mean we hit the jackpot, right? I tell people all the time, like so I worked at Caesars a few years back, and the first meeting I ever sat in, it was a company-wide meeting. We were kind of going over numbers, yada yada, but one of the first things the person hosting the meeting said, yeah, we really need Baylor to win tonight. It was the Baylor-Gonzaga national championship game. It was like, yeah, we got a lot of money on Gonzaga, so we're really rooting for Baylor. And I was like, wait, we could be, and then you get into technical stuff and all the, the boring mumbo jumbo, but it could have been based on consumer packaged goods, right? It could have been based on some stupid shit that I don't care about. Right. Now I get to talk about something that I really do love in sports, and it sounds like the same. And I do have to admit, Dustin, I don't want to hold this back. I'm a very big Mets fan, wearing my Mets shirt now. Obviously, the Mets didn't do so hot this postseason, but I may have enjoyed listening to LSR podcasts around the time the Phillies were, losing a couple World Series games. I can't not tell you that, right? I feel like a bad host. So I appreciate it.
I sent somebody to a Mets playoff game at Catena once, just as a thank you for some hard work. So I
look at that.
And I went to a Mets game, a long time ago now, because Zach Wheeler was pitching for the Mets at the time, now a Phillies pitcher, of course, and had an RBI double, shut down the Phillies. It was a miserable experience. Is that at the City Field too? So it was all around miserable experience, but good natured ribbing with all the fans who I get into sports on Twitter and all of that too, and people I know, all in good fun.
Yes. Well, at Twitter, of course, everyone knows it's very level-headed, so it's very easy conversations I'm sure you're having over there. And hey, you get the last laugh. You've had Zach Wheeler the last couple of years. Potential Cy Young candidate each year now. Shout out Brody Van Wagenen and appreciate what he did for the Mets. But we're over that. We're done. It's easy. So I am curious, right? So you grow up watching sports, right? Your story, while it's very unique to yourself, right, and growing up and being able to hang out with your grandparents and your parents and going to all these incredible games, the Vet especially, right? That stadium, I guess we could call it. It's so easy for everyone else to have some similar type story, right? Yours is unique to yourself, as I said before. What made you make that jump? You started in journalism, specifically on the sports side of things with the Washington Post, at least the small amount of research I did looking at your LinkedIn page told me that. What was it about sports and journalism that's the path that you wanted to go down and not, just business or even another subsect of journalism rather than going down the sports path?
Well, let's start here. I regret. Well, I guess regret's maybe harsh. I don't love that I was in newspapers for so long. Newspapers became a very bad business. I still respect the hell out of journalism that's done by newspapers, my local newspaper that I used to actually work for here in Oregon, all of that. But I was so I'll start there. It was good to get out of traditional newspaper media, but I started Yeah, I mean, I started writing for my local newspaper, Hanover Evening Sun, in a small evening paper in Pennsylvania, a town of like 40,000 people. I think it's a little bigger now, but I would go. They needed. I was working for a student produced part of the set of the newspaper, and I started they said the sports section need people to like take little league calls and and all the nonsense that comes in, and I just started melding all of that. And like in 8th grade, I won a writing contest at that newspaper, and I just got really into it. And then I actually went to school hoping I was not be in journalism. I went to school at George Washington University in D.C. I thought I was going to go into politics. I instantly became disillusioned with politics and government within a year of doing that. I worked at the newspaper there. I just kind of, again, this is what I did and knew. I started writing for the sports section. I became an assistant sports editor. I eventually ended up running my college paper. So I just always kept falling back into sports and writing about it. And then eventually I started dovetailing it with gambling too. I was a lot of people who are in this industry now were in the poker boom days. Like I was always writing and playing poker on the side most of my adult life as well. So it became all of this. So it informed the moment where I became what eventually my career became, which was melding writing and sports and gambling into one thing. I got very lucky to be in the position I was in and to have this background, pretty unique background, not super unique, but enough that I could understand and be ready for the moment that came in the U.S.
Yeah, don't be too humble. You do some really cool shit. So kudos and congratulations. And yeah, right place, right time. I don't believe in luck. I don't believe in coincidences. Right? You worked extremely hard to get to where you were. Thankfully, some of your passions were in the right spots, and then that allowed you, as you said, to meld what you've been able to do with sports, with gambling, the legalized side of gambling, some of this cool stuff that's been going on in the space, especially here the last five coming up on 5 years, a couple months.
5 years in May. Yeah.
Yeah, look at that. May 12th, right?
Yeah.
Something like that. But yeah, I think that's super cool. And with that transition from sports and like newspapers to online and sports betting, did you I guess the poker days were kind of nice, right? Before then there was some laws that came down, and poker unfortunately couldn't really do it legally anymore. There's a lot of bullshit involved, but whatever. Did you ever actually expect legalized sports betting to hit the United States? Was that kind of a pipe dream? Was that something that you thought eventually it's going to happen, maybe not my lifetime? What were some of your thoughts there?
When I started doing this, and yeah, the moment was when I started writing for a legal sports report, which is really early in 2015. I was been kicking around newspapers. I live here in Bend, Oregon. Worked for as a sports editor at the local paper here. I like a lot of newspapers things started going downhill, and I just had to get out. I worked for a marketing job. I just started freelancing more and doing all that, and then I landed at LSR. And this is cool. 2015, to inform you and the listeners, that's just when daily fantasy sports was really taking off. All that was going on, and I knew the site was being prepped for a world where legal sports was happening. New Jersey was challenging the federal ban in the Supreme in courts. Wasn't really going anywhere. It didn't seem like it was going anywhere. So I thought, okay, this is interesting, and this is just going to be kind of covering it for a while. I didn't know. I don't think really anybody thought in 2015 that we were 3 years away from legal sports betting, outside of Nevada in the United States. That was crazy. And then when the case was taken by the Supreme Court, lights started going off, right? Oh, this is a real possibility now. If that hadn't happened, I assure you, we'd all be living in a much different world. We would have been waiting for a federal, Congress to act. Good luck, right? It was this court case was the path to make it happen, and it happened. I don't know what kind of odds you would have given it at the time, but it was very bad. It was New Jersey had been losing every case it had. Finally gets the Supreme Court to say, "Oh, we'll take the case." And when the Supreme Court takes a case, there's a much better chance that it's going to be overturned than let stand. So when I started doing this, I really didn't think. I thought, oh, covering daily fantasy sports, I'm doing what I'm doing. This is really fun. But I don't think anybody really thought we were that close to sports betting, even 8 years ago, and from when we're talking now.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible how it happened. I sit here in New Jersey, in my basement in Danville, New Jersey, which is a cute little town. But shout out Governor Chris Christie. I mean, easily the best thing I think this guy ever did. He didn't even get it across the line. I'm pretty sure Phil Murphy did, but Christie started the whole thing, which is awesome, and we're very grateful for him and all the funny pictures, of course, but mostly for the sports betting thing. I think that's the most important part.
Yeah, absolutely. His name came off the case. It ended up being NCAA versus Murphy, but only because he was not the governor anymore when the case was finished. But yeah, he does deserve credit. He was the one pushing this, in online casino, online poker started. He's the one who started that too, right? He was a part of really what's become a revolution of iGaming in the United States.
It's pretty nice. Now I think we're up to 35 states, if I'm not mistaken, with legal sports betting in some capacity. You probably know the numbers a little better than I do, so please let me know. And Massachusetts, where we sit here on March 9th, Massachusetts is being added to that list in terms of online, which is pretty cool, tomorrow. So I don't know when you're listening to this, but it's about to happen, and I'm sure it's going to be pretty cool. So we're very excited about it.
Yeah, Massachusetts tomorrow. Yeah, it's kind of snuck up on us because we've I don't know, on my side I don't have to listen to all the endless meetings of the Massachusetts Gaming Commission anymore, but I know a lot of people have, and it's been quite a process playing out in public just to get to this point. But it is it's exciting whenever we have a new launch of sports betting and getting to a state where we have more sports betting across the country.
I'm very excited for it. It's going to be a fun one. Dustin, if you want, we could take the next 50 minutes and just rail on politicians. I don't know. It seems like you'd be very I think we could riff a lot on that, but we don't really need to. Shout out Massachusetts. At least they got us this far, and we can keep going from there. So, as you said, you kind of didn't expect this to be your career. This was cool. I get to talk about fantasy sports. That's awesome. Yeah, let me do this while maybe I look for another job, or maybe, this becomes a full-time job, but I don't expect it to, maybe be the full-time. And then, as you said now, right, so you ended up as the vice president of North American content for Catena Media. For anyone out there that doesn't know, Catena Media, easily one of the 3, 4, 2, I don't know, you tell me, biggest affiliates in the sports betting space. You guys do a lot of stuff in terms of the news, obviously, which is awesome, but then a lot of stuff helping out books and finding new customers, giving people an understanding of what they're doing, how they're doing, education around gambling, which I think is the most important thing. Scares me a little bit how uneducated a lot of the population is, but appreciate you guys for doing what you do there. And how do you fall into that? How do you oh yeah, I guess I'm the head of content. That's kind of cool. First off, what does the head of content do, especially when you're kind of roped into this? And how did you kind of, I don't know, was that something you were super excited about, or was it just something that it was here it is, let's see where this goes? I
mean, I've had some time to think. I recently stepped down from my position, and I'm just consulting, but it was just always, everything was happening so fast, especially once 2018 rolled around. I was just writing, editing. Legal Sports Report was one of sites that I was working on. I was working on all sorts of stuff, working on New Jersey online casino sites, Play USA, which is a casino brand, Online Poker Report. I was running and writing for all these sites at all the time, and and I don't deserve the credit for inventing this, but Chris Grove, the person who founded the startup that became what Catena acquired, he had this vision of what being an affiliate in the United States should be, and it started with becoming, being a really good source of news and being an authority from that. And then everybody started copying that eventually because they said, "Oh, this works. We're going to do this." So Legal Sports Report was extremely unique 8 years ago, but then other sites came along and started copying the model since flattery and all of that, right? So it was weird to be in it because I was just doing what I knew. Is I was a journalist, and I don't know as some special journalist that before I started doing this, but I brought a sense of journalism to daily fantasy sports and gambling that I don't think had been really leveraged in the United States. Nobody was doing this. There's a couple people who were writing with me at the time, Steve Ruddick and a few, Jessica Wellman, a few others who were doing this, but nobody was covering the daily fantasy sports space. There was basically one other guy at Yahoo, Dan Roberts, and it was me and him, and that was it. Nobody else was doing what we were doing, just writing day in and day out about what the industry was doing. And that became, obviously we're covering DraftKings and FanDuel and daily fantasy sports as a placeholder for sports betting. And it just kind of kept morphing into, okay, I know this. And it rolled into, New Jersey's challenging the sports betting law. And I would cover the crap out of that. And I was also very good at the other side of this, which is creating paid, content for Google, content for sites that informs people too, not just the news side. That's the stuff that everybody knows me for, but I was building websites, not sometimes by myself and sometimes editing and doing all that, but I was seeding all the content, that's, what is New Jersey sports betting? Who are the operators going to be? All of that stuff. So I showed a proclivity for doing that. And that's why I ended up where I was, because obviously there's tons of journalists now who do what I do or what I did. And I learned a lot while I was on the job. I learned how to I didn't know really anything about SEO or building websites before. I was just a writer and an editor, and I taught myself all that, or learned a lot of it from the people I was working with, and it just kept rolling into that. And then sports betting happened. The sites that I worked for were sold to Catena. They needed somebody to run all of it, and I was the only one around. They didn't want to bring in somebody externally, and then we were basically a small startup even within Catena for a long time, and then. I don't know. I can pretty much put it back to Michigan when Michigan launched sports betting online casino. That was the moment where, we're not just a startup anymore. This is like, big boy company now. That's like, this is important because the amount of money that was flowing through Michigan day one with casino and sports betting was absolutely insane. And we sent certainly more leads than anybody else in Michigan. I can say that pretty comfortably. But it's all. I just kept I don't know, falling into, they need somebody to do something, and I did it, and it become a vice president of a publicly traded company who, has an international footprint, and it was, I don't know, in real time, it was just always very hectic and very, very startup-ish, even as we were getting bigger. And I was just always thankful to be in the middle of it and to put the company in the sites that I loved and have been putting my blood, sweat, and tears into a really good position.
Well, a shout out, man. That's absolutely incredible. The way that you're able to just kind of continue to not just roll with the punches, but learn who's jabbing you, right? Like you're able to see, okay, what's coming next? How do I do it? What have I learned? How do I take advantage of what I've learned to be able to put it into the next thing, to put it in the next thing? Because, right, when it was just DraftKings and FanDuel, right, it was probably fun, interesting. It was cool. Things were different. We're getting fun. Wow, look what we could do over here. Look what we could do over there. And then, now we start getting legal sports betting states. So you guys are able to talk about that a little bit more. Now we have all these, 20 whatever sports books in New Jersey by themselves, right? And now before it was just two companies and they're kind of duking it out and we'll see what happens. Now it's like this entire industry that brings in billions and billions and billions of dollars, only a couple years removed from where you were. And as you said, Michigan, I remember, it was Michigan and Virginia on the same day, if I'm not mistaken, and everyone was like, this is cool. Michigan's a little more important because of the casino side of things. And we'll get into the casino and iGaming versus the sports betting a little bit later. I know you're very adept at having that conversation as well, man. But I love the way you put that. I really appreciate the story. I think it's really good for people to understand. It was moving so fast. You really couldn't do anything about it. You just kept learning, kept going, and, just not thankfully. Obviously, you worked really hard, but we're really successful with it along the way.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's funny when I started. A great story is that obviously you're an affiliate, but I'm also doing news. Basically all we were doing was with the sites that I was running, the only money coming in was from New Jersey Online Casino and Poker, a little bit of Nevada Poker because Nevada had online poker as well, all of that, and then Daily Fantasy Sports. So I famously I would just crap on DraftKings, right? I was covering the crap out of them, they did not. I don't think they liked me very much. I think they like me all right now, and they obviously work with us. But it was funny back in the day, I'm getting basically daily fantasy sports leads. We're paying my salary. Chris, my old boss, would like to point out, yeah, you're getting paid. DraftKings is paying us for you to crap on them daily, right? that's I'm not crap. I was just being very. But that's also I think why we're successful and why the whole industry has worked, because we take this new sense to it, right? You can come to us and really trust that we're giving you, I think, good information. No, I don't. I've been challenged sometimes on walking this line, but it's for sure I can tell you quite honestly, I've never had to make a decision about a news story versus what an operator would say. The news story ran, right? Because that is what we did. And what we still do, and what Legal Sports Report and a lot of other sites in the industry do, is that bring that authority and ability to question the industry, be a problem gambling, be in the front of problem gambling, all of that. It's I think that trust in these sites. I think that's why it also works, and why we were successful, and why a lot of people copied what we did, and why the affiliate industry in general is doing well right now.
As you said, flattery. I can't remember the exact sincerest form. Something
sincerest
I know
form of
flattery. Thank you. Okay, I can't quite remember the words and the way they went, but no, I think it's important. And honestly, there are a couple different sites that do a little bit about what you guys do. But as you said, you guys have been doing this for so long. it's one of my bookmarks. I love staying up to date. This is an industry I love. It's an industry I work in. It's an industry I'm extremely interested in. And I always love learning what's going on. What states are potentially coming about, what's happening, what are some of the news stories. And I think that that's a really important thing for people to understand. Yes, you do work with the books. Catena Media works with a lot of different sports books. That's how they make a lot of their money. You could tell me exactly how every dollar is made and spent. But I think it is really interesting. And, I've seen it firsthand when I was at Caesars. We had some conversations over, hey, this is interesting. Like, well, what's going on here, right? And like understanding, like you guys are, this is the news story. This is what's happening. This is what we're hearing. This is what senators are saying. We have to report on this. This is literally our jobs. It's interesting on the DraftKings side of things, as you said. Like, I'm sure, especially in the beginning, that might have made them a little. I don't know. I'm sure some eyebrows were raised. Did you ever have to have those types of conversations? And maybe we don't have to pick on DraftKings. I apologize. I don't want to get too in the weeds on this stuff. But did you ever, as you said, you always ran the news story no matter what. Did you ever have conversations with people, maybe from DraftKings or FanDuel, like, hey, you want to take that down? Like, what's going on here? I thought we're buddy. What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that really. This gets into the weeds, but people who've been around will know, like the data leak around DraftKings around their lineups. That's I'm not going to retell that story. You can go look it up.
That was a fun one. Yeah,
it was fun.
Yeah,
but we didn't even break the story. Like there's this little. This is really getting inside baseball. But there's a little site called DFS Report that kind of broke the story, and like they're talking about like what happened in this and what was going on, and then we picked up on it and like reported the crap out of it. And that's what I think kind of put us on the map. It led to the New York Times writing it. We were talking to the New York Times at the time about like what trying to help them understand the story, because we were the ones kind of brought it to the forefront, and we were me and Chris at the time were the experts on it. So that's what put us, they really hated us running any of that, quite right. They was like, this is awful for us. Don't do this. But it also, all of that led to putting DraftKings and FanDuel in a better position, because then came regulation. There's obviously outcomes where things didn't go well for them if they didn't get regulated, if New York didn't pass a law, all of that. But I think us being a watchdog led to a better outcome that also put FanDuel and DraftKings in a really good position for sports betting. If all of this hadn't happened, I don't know if they'd be where they are today. That's not to say I'm responsible for DraftKings and FanDuel's
I was
success.
Going to say we should
no.
man.
But all of this, the journey that what happened in daily fantasy sports, was to some extent, informed what happened in sports betting later, and the dominant market position that these two companies have. Because there's a world where they go away, where if they weren't really regulated companies, I don't know. It could. There's infinite realities where this all went sideways for them. But yeah, they certainly there are people who told me, told us you can't run this story. You got to take it down. This is awful for the industry. Blah blah blah. But no, that's not what we're about, and there's never a serious conversation to take it down. All we did was continue to report it, give DraftKings and FanDuel as things went on, they could talk about whatever they want. We had an open conduit. Like, you want to have your voice, here you go. So.
Yeah, they can comment on the story, right? They can be a part of the story and see what's going on. So I think that's as long as everything's above board there, it's obviously worth it. And I think it's really interesting, again, just to kind of see and hear, and appreciate you telling your story a little bit, Dustin. This is awesome on kind of how you got to where you got to, right? So you're in the thick of it, you're in the weeds right now. We have, I want to say, 35 legal sports betting states. 18 that are online, if I'm not mistaken. Depends on where you are, who you play with, how the states work, right? There's the Connecticut's and the like New Hampshire's of the world, where you only get like one or two different options, and then there's the other places where New Jersey, I think there's like 28 books or whatever. What, like, in your time, how have you seen, and that's an easy evolution, but what are some of the things that you've seen evolve in the industry in just the first 5 years, and some of the positives as well as some of the negatives that you've seen evolve over your time here with Catena?
Man, there's a lot. That could be its own podcast, I'm sure.
You can come back on if you want. That's fine.
Yeah, I mean, it's been fascinating to see. Again, I like to. I think I put this in my first Substack too. I could be cold taked all day long. I didn't think FanDuel and DraftKings were going to be the ones who won all this either. And now it's hard to see a world where they don't end up the winners in sports betting. It's been fascinating to see how, I think the European companies thought they were going to come over and take over the world, and Flutter owns FanDuel. Maybe they kind of have come over and taken over the world, but it's been fascinating to see how the industry has developed and who the winners and how what has worked and what hasn't. And talking about Caesars and MGM and what their growth, like MGM, these are two major casino companies that really didn't, they had online casino in New Jersey, but they didn't really care about it. And now you listen to an earnings report from MGM and Caesars, and this is their growth story now. This is a sea change from where we were 5 years ago. Like it was all regional casinos and Vegas casinos, and that was all that matters. And now interactive gaming and online sports betting and all of that, that's a part of the culture of gambling in the United States. And when you step back and think about it, that's wild, because we're pre sports betting, we're always having this conversation about cannibalization. Like, is online betting cannibalizing the land-based casinos? And we've basically learned that's nonsense. It's not happening. I think there's actually some reporting in the New York Times recently that kind of poo-pooed that, but it's not a thing that's happened. If you invest in online gambling, it's customers you didn't have or reactivating or who aren't going to your land-based casino. These are new and different customers. And to sit back and think about, that's the world we live in, where 5 years ago, nobody was really thinking about online gambling. And then sports betting happened, and all of a sudden, we have, a couple other states legalize online casino, online poker, and online sports betting is now not taboo. It's just a thing that happens a lot of places. Yes, we're going through re-regulation right now and some growing pains, but that this point where we're at now didn't have to happen. And that's the thing that I think is most interesting of stepping back and seeing where the industry has gone, is that now, we are part of a world where online gambling is inevitable. It's going to still be slow, the rollout of it elsewhere in online casino, but it's really different than when we were having these conversations 5 to 10 years ago.
And I think you bring up a really interesting point about sports betting versus these giant behemoth casino companies, right? I worked at Caesars prior to it being Caesars. I actually was working at William Hill. I think my first 3 weeks was technically at William Hill. I was left off multiple internal emails because nobody cared I got hired. Everyone was just like, did the deal go through? Did the deal go through? That was every meeting. Hey guys, we'll cancel this, pick it up next week because we're not sure if the deal went through. And that was always funny when I was there. But what is it about, I know what it is. It's money. We all know what it is. It's money. But once the iGaming side of things is so much more profitable than sports betting. Why have we seen such a slow rollout, right? We have Pennsylvania, New Jersey, West Virginia, Michigan, and if you want to count Ontario as part of the United States, those are really the only 5 states that we have online casino. I don't actually even know what happened in Vegas or Nevada. I kind of don't even. And Connecticut, right? Is Connecticut another?
Connecticut and also Delaware, which is super weird. But
okay, yeah, we'll leave Delaware off just because. But no, in sincerity, why has it been such a slow rollout for iGaming? Is it politicians just wanting to save face? Is sports betting just so much more fun and enjoyable? And then when you start just pulling slot levers at 3 o'clock in the morning, now you have a problem. What have you seen in your time to make it such a much slower rollout for the iGaming and the iCasino side of things?
I mean, it's totally irrational. Let's start there. It's like awesome. if you're gonna legalize online sports betting, sports betting gets this pass in the world, right?
It's just entertainment.
Yeah, people have been betting on sports in some way, shape, or form for forever, and it's it was a very easy sell to go in and say, look, hey, let's legalize sports betting, new money. It's already all these offshore sports books and doing this. It seemed like, I say now it was a very easy narrative to pitch, but if you were going to do that, what is the real difference between that and online casino and online poker? It's some of it is just still this. We have these problems in the background of the industry. People think there is this cannibalization or there's this morality to it. It's okay, well, yes, we did sports betting, but it's a whole different story to do casino. And I'm just you have opened up the box already. Why are you stopping now? And it is still some morality, some pushback from casinos. Tribal casinos, have been weary of this. They've been trying to. They've adopted it some places in California and other places they have not. And I totally understand them being wary of trusting the United States government or any government with what their gambling industry is going to be. But I mean, it starts from irrationality because I just don't see that there's this huge difference between it. And we're going to get there. It's just going to be slower. It's just it was too bad that there wasn't more piggybacking off of it at the time. That like when we were everybody was just trying to get sports betting through, and this is like seen as easy wins, and not at the same time trying to really push for casino and poker alongside of it. And is that a mistake in retrospect? Maybe not, but that's what all these, again, the same companies that we just talked about, that's what the lobbying is going to happen next. Like we're running out of states to legalize, right? So, we get Texas this year. We talked about Massachusetts launch. Who else is going to really has a legit chance of legalizing this year? There's only a couple really, I think, as we sit here, have a real chance to legalize. So the lobbying and all of this, and these companies, they're going to continue pitching growth and not by taking market share. It's going to be from, passing online casino legislation, and that's the needle mover. It's a much better business to be in, and that's it just kind of gets put under the rug. But that anywhere where these companies are in the states with online casino, they're doing much better and doing much more revenue, and it just kind of gets thrown to the side. But that is where the industry is headed, and it's the sports betting boom is maybe kind of over already, and it has to pivot to online casino.
Yeah, I mean, California, Texas, Florida. Then after that, like the Carolinas. Are there any big states?
Kentucky. You got Minnesota, Missouri.
How many people, like, no offense to anyone that lives there. Like, how many people live in Missouri? Like, all right, like, am I going to go clamoring to I can't wait to launch Missouri? No offense again, but like, just think of it from a population standpoint. Yeah. Florida's going to be awesome. It was live for a couple weeks. Go Google that story. That one's wild with the Seminole tribe. Obviously Texas and California, and then, kind of, as you said, like the boom is slowing down considerably, which is kind of nice from where I sit. From some of my coworkers probably not too angry about it, but I do agree, man. Eventually we are going to get to the iGaming side of things because, as you said, it's considerably more profitable. There's more revenue, and with that comes taxes, and that's why all these states did it. I've said this story on this podcast a few times. I've had some awesome people in the gambling space. If it wasn't for COVID, I don't think we would have had the massive rollout as we did, because states spent a lot of money in taxes during COVID with all these, in most situations, very well needed programs. And then they needed to flip a switch and find $500 million. And sports betting was a very easy one to do. Obviously, iGaming is going to be there right behind it one of these days. So yeah, I guess we'll see, Yeah,
I mean, again, sports betting has, depending on how the law was written, provides some decent revenue, provides not very much revenue. But if anybody who wants, who's looking at gambling as a new revenue source for the state, this is what you should be legalizing. This is where the real money is. It is, factors above what sports betting will be, and is more consistent. And yeah, it's, again, that's like. And when you get into the morality piece of this, like, oh, you have a casino in your pocket, like, man, like we've crossed that bridge. Like, we have legalized every freaking form of gambling on the planet. And don't get me started on lotteries, which are
the worst.
Are the worst return to players, the worst in terms of advertising.
Who usually runs the lottery, Dustin?
Yeah,
the state does.
Yeah, but this is why it gets me angry. Is like, you've legalized everything else. Why is this different? And they could just take it down. There are tons of lotteries that now have online components. And I'm not here to get sued, but they're not slot machines. They're slot machines. But they're called online video lottery. Like, it's, there's a slightly different mechanic that makes them, I guess, not slot machines, but online lotteries are already in several states, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Virginia, are running slot machines as a lottery. And it doesn't get talked about a whole lot. They're also kind of bad at marketing, I'd argue. But online casino is here. A lot of places where people pretend that it's not, and that's the thing. Is like, oh, you have it offshore, you have it at your lottery. Like, what? Like, your wringing of hands over legalizing online casino is kind of like, man, the ship has sailed. It's already here. Like, either embrace it or don't.
I hate politicians. I don't know if I said that earlier, but just wanted to get that on the record. Totally agree with you, man. It is kind of ridiculous. We're going to see it. It's going to come eventually. And I think the state that it might, you guys have talked about it a little bit on the LSR podcast, New York, with I mean, do you want to talk about that a little bit? The 51% tax revenue, all these operators agreed to it. Now everyone's crying about it. And now it's like, well, either give us lower tax rates or iCasino, and then it's going to cost $1 billion. Like, New York is such a weird state from everything that's happened. What can you glean from New York in what potentially might happen in Florida, Texas, California? Do they think they'll make the same mistakes, corrections? I don't know. Is there anything you can see that might happen in some of these other giant states, such as what happens in New York?
I mean, each of these other states are kind of snowflakes. I think what New York has made is that everybody's going to say, "Oh, we're not charging you enough in taxes," and like if you like you said, everybody kind of agreed to this astronomical tax rate to get into New York. At the time, it was like have to be in New York, right? We got to eat this, so we get in New York. We can't afford to be on the outside looking in. So, like they're all different. Like California is the tribes. The tribes will determine whether things happen or not. Like we learned that in the ballot measure this year or last year. That you have to work with them if you want something to happen. Florida is another one where it's the Seminoles and the compact of the state. There's a court case right now about whether that can continue or not. And then Texas is again a totally different one where there's a lot going on there, but we have the major sports team owners. A lot of people are behind it, and to do it.
Magic Smack isn't though.
Yeah, no.
Sorry, I had to get that one in. I had to get that one in. I'm sorry. Again, if you listen to LSR podcast, it's a little dick, so I apologize.
But yeah, my wife's from Houston too, and Mattress Mac is a legend there, and slandering Mac doesn't go over well with my in-laws. But
she doesn't have to listen to this. It's fine.
Yeah, but they're all snowflakes and very different. And I think what New York did was set up is re-regulation / we're going to make you pay more money, which is a bad outcome for everyone. Like there, Pennsylvania is on the high side too, but it's like it's enough, but it's enough to make it profitable. Like you can already see in New York, like people are pulling back on marketing. I think there's talk of the odds being worse there. Not spending on customer acquisition. Like I think so. Don't think I'm crying wolf and saying some of this money and revenue in New York's going to go away by like the operators not trying because they can't make money, right? Like that's a real thing. But I also understand like you guys signed up for this. I don't care. But at the same time, if you really want a successful market, and I understand it's hard to say, oh, we're gonna take less money, lower the tax rate and potentially take less money. But in the long term, I've always said this is you shouldn't be looking at this always as a customer as revenue, the bottom line revenue that the state gets or that businesses get. Like this is a customer protection thing. It should be a good narrative for the industry and for politicians. Like again, there's every day I still see people sharing Bovada or Bodog or Bet Online odds in the media, and I'm like, this is what you're still going up against, and you want that to go away, and you're not going to. In the federal, people always ask, when's the federal government going to get involved to stop all this? Like they're not stopping that. Stop it. So I don't know. I think New York it remains problematic, and I think if everybody could go back and do it again, they probably would have done it differently. And I don't know, maybe they should have colluded on the bids a little bit more, or they were partners already on what the bids should be. I think everybody probably should have agreed. Here are the terms of engagement. Let's not screw ourselves, rather than throw everything at it and just to get into New York.
Yeah, you make a really good point, especially when it comes down to the customer level, right? Like, yes, we're looking at this from a state and a tax and a revenue and how much are these companies making? What's the state pulling in? But as you said, I think Jason Robbins was the gentleman who said the quiet part out loud was like, hey, if we can't make money, we're going to figure out a way to make money. Right. And we're going to do that by making, if you're familiar with sports betting at all, -110 on both sides of the spread, right? The hold is 4.5%, let's call it, a quick, easy math. They're going to make that -115, -115, -120, -120 on each side, where that then allows the book, potentially, I'm just using round numbers also, to make more money when an opportunity arises. So they're going to pay out less to the customer. And then in the long run, the customer is the one that gets screwed when the state's already pulling in an insane amount of money. So while I agree, I do not feel bad at all for the companies who signed up for it. When you really break it down, if you're looking at it from a customer protection standpoint, like you did, I think that's a really, really smart, intuitive way to look at it, because we're trying to make it easier for the customer. We don't want them to then go to Bovada and be like, wait, the lines are better here. I'll just use this book. What the hell do I care? Like, I don't care if it's DraftKings. DraftKings sucks.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I've heard it phrased that way, the way you did it, but like, yeah, you're basically end up screwing the customer if you're the state, right? Because I'm on the record as saying people aren't that price sensitive. Like minus 110 or minus 108 or minus 115, I don't think the average customer who's betting $20 on a game really cares or notices. But like, yeah, I mean, minus 115, minus 117 lines are already here some places, and that's not just like the sites I like to crap on. It's, like some of the major operators, like even on Ontario, have gone to minus 117 standard lines, right? That's not good. Like, again, is a customer not going to bet because of that? No, but like that's, just passing that on to, see the revenue to the operator and then revenue to the jurisdiction in which it's going on. You're basically, again, just like lotteries, arguably you're screwing the customer. Like, is that your goal? If your end goal is always make the absolute most money, sure. But like, it's at some point you have to step back, I think, and take a look at it a little bit more holistically. It's like what is leading to this money that's coming in, and if it's if it ends up being like you said, Jason Robbins saying, yeah, we're gonna probably he didn't say screw customers, but we're probably gonna screw customers a little bit more, take more of their money somehow, then that's the end game, right?
Yeah, I think it's important to pay attention to that piece of it, right? And as you, I think, just said, like, New York will probably make more money if they have slightly more agreeable terms, because then the books are able to promote more and do more things and allow more people to come in and enjoy the product because it's a better product. And then New York, everyone literally wins in this situation. But again, I do not feel bad for the books. They all agreed to this. It's a revenue share model. And just to get a little more into the weeds for people, you want to go Google it, they can't write off any of their promotional dollars. So it's essentially a 70% tax if you want to use like rough estimates. So again, they signed up for it. I don't feel bad. But you bring up a couple things. So I kind of want to choose your own adventure here a little bit. So I brought up New York specifically to get to the topic of them profitability, because after New York, profitability, like that January, I remember those next earning calls, it was all about profitability. It wasn't about market share anymore. It was like, holy shit, what did we do? We need to become profitable. We all just burned $1 billion. That was fun. But you brought up education, which I think is the number one thing that scares the hell out of me working in this industry. Is I don't think there's nearly enough education out there. It's all about, it's fun, do it, look how much fun you're having, just bet on it. No one knows what minus 110 means, right? Like as you said, price sensitive, they don't know what the price is. Like that's the scariest part. So we'll talk about both, but choose your own adventure, Dustin. Do you want to talk about profitability or education more?
Yeah, we'll do education first, I guess. It is fascinating, like, and there's so much bad content still out there. And actually, sports betting has created more and more of that, and more people giving picks or selling picks, or just the lowest common denominator of sports betting content, of trying to get people to sign up, or like, shareable content on social media, or just all sorts of nonsense. And that's part of the reckoning I think we're seeing is this like, maybe people don't see it as much as I do, but like, most of the reaction is to the commercials, but the content out there around sports betting is on TV and on the internet is mostly really bad, right? And I hope we get to a point, like you said, where it all becomes better, because when a point where people are they're actually learning what they're getting into, instead of just, blindly spending money. And, yeah, sure, that's fun. But like, I do hope we get to an end state where we come, like, it's not just nonsense out there, and we have, really consumers who are being a little, like, I'm not saying everybody should be sharp, but like understand what the hell is going on when you're placing a bet and all of that. Cause I think there's so much out there of that. And again, I always rail on offshore. It's still very hard for people to know what's offshore and what's not, right? There's no like magic line that says, here, this is offshore and this is not. Like, again, it's so weird to me in the media that there's no comp for this, and that citing an illegally operating business regularly for whatever they're saying, whether it's their odds or what's going on, like, it boggles my mind. Because again, I come from a newspaper background where people like to think about this a little bit, like use a little bit of creative thinking, but then you just see, you see, oh, Bodog's in my inbox, I guess I'm going to share that and put it in a story, and it goes, it's not a little problem. It's like very big national writers still do this. That educate, if the media is still bad at this, like how are we supposed to expect the average consumer to be able to differentiate it? It's a problem. And it's like, it's 5 years in, and it maybe have gotten a little better. And, But it's one of my things that I'm always on about is like, let's stop doing this, because it's so wild to me. Like, again, if somebody can come up with, put this out on Twitter several times. If somebody comes to me with a comp where the media cites an illegally operating business regularly, like, I don't know what that comp is. It doesn't exist. It's so bizarre to me that it continues to happen.
It is very interesting. I've seen it a couple times, right? And so you bring up a few things. One, go to legalsportsreport.com if you're curious what books are operating legally within your state. I think that's pretty important. I'll give you the plug there, Dustin. But I think it's really interesting, right? Because there's no, unless you're searching that information out, you're right. There is no line. Like, when you go to the illegal site, it doesn't say, hold on, this is illegal. Like, maybe you shouldn't do this. They want your money too. They want your revenue too. They're not stupid, so they want to make sure they're taking advantage of it. One example of what you said, my time when I was at Caesars, right? So Caesars still, if I'm not mistaken, has a pretty big deal with CBS Sports. Josina Anderson was working at CBS Sports at the time and kept quoting Bovada lines, if I'm not mistaken, to the point where people in Caesars, like some of the higher ups, were like, get us on the phone with CBS, because A, we have the partnership, B, that's an illegal book. Like, okay, if you're using DraftKings, we're just angry. This is a problem. Like, this is a very big problem. So I remember when that happened, and it was taken care of. And again, it's just one of those things where if you're not seeking out that education, it's all the same. Like, okay, DraftKings is legal. Like, does that mean my bookie is too? They're both betting. Oh, betting's legal in the state, which means I can bet here, right? Well, like, no, actually, that's not how it works. So I think the education on that side is very important. It doesn't seem like it happens nearly enough.
No, absolutely not. And thankfully for the media affiliate industry, like, Google has been good at rewarding sites like ours, right? Like, the sites, they have bubbled to the top a lot of times. So you are, at least most of the times, you're searching for, go search for Massachusetts sports betting, for instance, tomorrow. If you're in Massachusetts, you will find a vast majority of those sites that you are getting are promoting or a legal operator. There's going to be some things that don't always jive with that, but that part's at least been sort of good. Like, it's encouraging to see Google at least understands that. Not 100% of the time, but yeah, it's impossible for a consumer to really make that differentiation. There's there's a little bit of difference between, okay, yeah, maybe you can bet at it. You're almost certainly not going to jail. I'm not giving legal advice here, but you're almost certainly not going to jail for betting at an offshore site. But make no mistake about it, like, there are laws that are probably problematic. There's also people who think they don't have to pay income taxes on it because it's offshore. Good luck with that. But they are 100% illegally operating in whatever state they are. They are against state laws. They're against the federal law. There's lots of things that they're doing that, that again, and it's if I was a consumer who didn't know anything about it, yeah, you're right. You just like, oh, this state, they take customers, they take bettors in this state. This seems good to go. Great. Like, we have not gotten anywhere on that, really, on that front, and that's frustrating.
It is very frustrating because a lot of bad things can happen if you are using those books. Some of them are pretty upstanding, and some of them shut down overnight, and you had no idea it happened, and there goes all your money. So it's one of those things. The regulated side of things, while comes with regulation, it also comes with protections for most people, which I think is pretty important. And the other side of the education piece, and again, appreciate your time here, Dustin. This has been awesome. Like, I was in Arizona for the state launch, that September 8th, whatever it was, Bucks, Cowboys. I remember the game. I took the Cowboys. Everyone was on the Bucks. I was like, I don't know, like 8.5 is a lot of points, whatever. I won that bet. No big deal. But I was there literally helping sign people up when I was working at Caesars, saying, hey, here you go. This is what we're doing. This is how it works. Get this, get that. This is awesome. Go take it. Free money, this, that, and the third, right? And later that night, I ran into someone, and I was like, hey, man, like, how was it? Like, did you have fun? Like, what'd you bet on? Did you win? He's like, oh, no, I lost. I took the Cowboys +8. And I was like, that means you won. He's like, what do you mean? I was like, you took them +8, which means they got 8 points starting the game or at the end of the game, whatever you want to say. And they ended up technically winning with the 8.5 extra points. He's like, oh, no shit. Oh, sweet. I just won $250. And I was like, you bet $250 on this and you don't know what you're doing. Now, there is the consumer does have to figure that out, right? The consumer has to have a little responsibility in this. But I will say, with all these books, again, I work for one of them. With all these books, it is very much just, it's legal, it's live, this is the new bonus. Like, take it. Like, oh, you got to run. Like, you could bet on this and you could bet on this. Like, you could bet on the money line. What the hell's the money line? What is the money line? If you don't know what a money line is, telling me I can bet on a money line means nothing to me. Mm-hmm. Like, that is the one thing that scares me a little bit at the industry, especially in these nascent, in these immature markets where people really have no idea, right? New Jersey's a little different. We've had casinos maybe you can kind of make that excuse a little bit. But like, I don't know. That's the part that kind of worries me. And people, I think, are getting educated, help to you. And as you said, other affiliates, shout out Action Network, one of your big competitors, right? Like they have a really awesome here's how you bet. Like these are some of the things you need to know before you place a bet. It's just, that's the part that scares me a little bit about this industry.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's, if you were going to invent sports betting from the ground up, I don't think you'd invent it the way that
it makes no sense.
Like the way to, like, we basically took the Nevada model, and that's what everybody, like, because some amount of people were familiar with betting in Nevada. Like you would blow up sports betting and start over. I think if you were really trying to make it make sense. And you talk about signing up customers. That's the other part, like that I think doesn't get enough attention. Is there's still a lot of friction, and it's not easy to sign up for an online sportsbook. That's partly by design, so for know your customer protocols and everything, but and different regulation, different states. But it's hard. There's a lot of friction to go from, I know sports betting is legal and I want to sign up for a sports book, to actually making that happen. The number of steps that you have to do, giving your part of your social security number, giving a credit card, going through all of that rigmarole to get to that, like that's painful still. And that there's still so much to be done there. Like, like you said, just signing people up. There's companies out there who just sign people up in person and help them through the process. Right. And, we and others try to do that online too, but it's such a hard process right now. And that's not going to really get better, but, signing up for an online sportsbook is not really as easy as it's much harder than signing up for almost anything else online. And that friction still stops, I think, a lot of people from getting involved.
And that can be looked at as a good thing or a bad thing, right? Good thing that, hey, there is this process. You have to understand that there's a reason why I need your most recent utility bill, right? There is that. But then there's, well, I could just go over to Bet Online and I don't have to give them my utility bill, so I'll probably just go there. Like some might even think that's less sketchy if you kind of, just take a step back and be like, yeah, why would I want to give you my utility bill, right? So I think there's a lot of different things that we could, maybe you sit down, drink a beer, figure it out. But other than that, I think we'll let the politicians. Damn, I don't really.
Apparently, it's not a problem in Ohio based on how much people were betting day one there.
Yes, that was pretty wild. If that game went to overtime, I know it couldn't have because of that kick. But if that game went to overtime, I'm really curious what the handle on just the overtime of Ohio State Georgia would have been. That would have been,
and on the national championship game
yes.
again. Yeah, I think we talked about this even on the LSR podcast. What happened? Like, it was already a bonkers number. If Ohio State's still playing that next week, how much money is going to be bet on that game? Just nuts to think about.
And shout out Ohio for not having a little foresight into when the semifinals are. Like, good chance Ohio State makes it just about every year. Like, maybe we'll do it a day earlier. I don't know. Not my decision. It is what it is. Last thing I want to talk to you about, again, sincerely appreciate your time. Profitability. It's a really big word. It starts with a P, and all of these books are now talking about it. As I said before, I didn't really hear too much about it. Again, I was kind of new in the industry. You've been here much longer, right? But after New York, after those tax bills started coming due, after we started to see the bonusing and, you actually have to pay on every dollar that you got bonus, profitability became a very important word. And then it pretty much swept the industry, where now all the earnings calls are all about, well, how do we get to profitability? How do we get to profitability? Have you seen kind of an about face like that quickly? Like, it seemed like it went from land grab, we'll spend any amount of money to get any amount of people and we'll figure it out later, to we got to stop spending nearly as much money and we need to figure out a way to make this profitable ASAP.
Yeah, I mean, again, most of these are publicly traded companies, and they're just reacting to what the market was telling them. Yeah, I mean, Caesars went from, we're just throwing tons of billions of dollars at this problem. Maybe billions is hundreds of millions, certainly. More than a billion. Yeah, probably.
More than a billion.
Yeah.
Publicly traded. I'm not giving any information. You could look that up if you want.
But I mean, went from to almost cold, not quite cold turkey, but very, very quickly turned things around to we're worried about making money. And it's fascinating because then if you're, we talked about FanDuel's number one, DraftKings number two, and then everybody else is in the second tier or third tier or what have you of okay, how do we yes, we want to be profitable. Are we okay with just with our market share, 3, 4, 5% market share, or do we still want to grow it? Because if you're worried about profitability and you're saying, well, we're kind of done acquiring customers and doing a lot of marketing, are you okay with that business? And if you're MGM and Penn and Caesars, you're probably fine with that being kind of we're just a nice little profitable business on the side. It helps put customers into our databases, gets them into our rewards program. It's all very holistic. If you're a smaller sports only operation, like that's tough, right? If you're anybody else, like, are you like 1%, but you're profitable? Like, I don't know. That's not really turning anyone on, I don't think. It's fascinating where it all has gone. Yeah, DraftKings famously is like, we're going to be profitable this year, and they're doing it at a scale where that's pretty good if they can do that. If they can, but also not lose market share to FanDuel or to anybody else. We have Fanatics coming in here. That'll be interesting to see if they eat into anybody's market share, but. Yeah, it was breakneck because it was like, yeah, you're absolutely right. It was spending lots of money, and then all of a sudden, like, oh, we need to stop spending so much money. Like, oops, just sorry. Like, we want to make money now.
Our bad. Let's what we said at the beginning of the year, we're gonna change it very quickly. And it makes sense. You have to be profitable at some point. Like, how long can we possibly just light money on fire doing this? Right? At some point, it was gonna stop. But it was very interesting how quickly it stopped, and the ramifications of it, but the reasons why and how it happened so quickly also were, if you're just paying attention, you could probably figure out very quickly why. So it is pretty interesting to me. And as you said, right, if you do have these land-based casinos, that is important, right? If you are DraftKings and FanDuel, where you just have the utmost market share, that is important. Everybody else, like we've already seen Fubu,
Mm-hmm.
I never really remember which one it is. They had to shut down after spending, I think, like $100 million. First off, how did you spend $100 million? Like that badly? Like, I'm curious about that. I just kind of want to see the books just out of a curiosity standpoint. But how did you not acquire enough customers in the $100 million that you spent? What are we doing, right? And we've seen multiple books now kind of take that, like, yeah, we're actually done. Like, we don't want to do this anymore. We're good. And, like, I think it's going to continue to happen. I think there's going to be a little consolidation. People are going to start eating other people, but it's an interesting industry, and that's why I love talking about it. So I appreciate it, Dustin.
Yeah, absolutely. All these little companies, like, who've made MaximBet, like, who?
Oh, that was the other one. Yeah,
I could, like, I'll put a little pitch out for. I'm a consultant for Canadian Media. If you want me to help you, we do this for free on the LSR podcast all the time. We tell you these things are dumb. Like, like, why did you, like, you had sportsbetting.com and you said, oh, we're going with MaximBet. What, like? Who makes these? Like, I told you that.
Yeah.
I could have told you that was stupid. And Bally's sending, lighting money on fire on Monkey Knife Fight and all these other things. Like, I've been telling people, not a good idea. Like everybody, like right now, everybody's at least stopping and taking a beat, right? I think, and that's with after Massachusetts, there's going to be a beat to like to evaluate all this stuff, and I think that'll be really good for the industry as a whole.
I agree. Let people breathe a little bit. And yeah, hey, you can ask me too. Like, I know Dustin's been doing this a lot longer than I have, but I could have told you MaximBet was a bad idea. Like, no offense, Dustin, did not take an astronaut to figure that one out. I probably could have figured that one. You could have told me about it. But yeah, man, this has been awesome. Really appreciate it. Just a nice conversation. Appreciate your story, your history, what you've done, and dovetailing that easily into a nice conversation about what's going on in the industry. It's something that I thoroughly enjoy. It's something that I'm very passionate about. I'm grateful that I get to work in it. Grateful that I get to read and listen to people like yourself. And hell, now I get to talk to you a little bit too. So thank you for that. I appreciate it, man.
Cheers. It was great fun talking to you.
Absolutely. Where can we find you on the internet? Where can we learn more about your newsletter, The Closing Line? Tell us where can we, interact with you a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, I still do the Legal Sports Report Legal Sports Report podcast, legalsportsreport.com/podcast. I believe all the episodes. There's one up there now that we did this morning. Good fun. I was very angry this morning, so you can enjoy that. Closingline.substack.com. I'm a new Substacker. I already have like 200 people who want to read my stuff for free.
Hell
so like I was, I don't know what I'm going to do. It was just so I could write and have some fun. And I don't think I really thought a lot of people were going to sign up so quickly, but you can find the words I write there, probably a lot of just opinion about what I think is going on in the industry, like you heard here today.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm one of those 200 people, so keep doing your thing, man. I enjoy reading about it. But Dustin, this has been awesome. Dustin Gouker, consultant to the CEO of Catena Media. Make sure, again, check out the newsletter, The Closing Line. I'll have everything in the show notes for everyone if they want to check that out. Dustin's time is the only thing we don't get more of. I really appreciate you giving me some of yours. I appreciate the audience giving us some of theirs. Other than that, I hope you have a great rest of your day, man. Thank you.
You too. Thanks.
Bye, everybody.